The sharp sound of a slap against flesh echoed through the high ceilings of the dining room and instantly silenced the laughter of 50 wealthy guests. I am Katrina, 32 years old, and I had never felt such deep humiliation until that Thanksgiving night in Park City. Everything started innocently enough as I was carefully navigating through the crowded living room with a silver tray of vintage red wine when a tipsy guest suddenly stumbled heavily into my right arm. The dark crimson liquid splashed violently all over the pristine white silk dress my sister was wearing to show off to our relatives. While I struggled to regain my balance, my sister did not hesitate for a single second before her hand flew across my face with enough force to leave a burning red mark on my cheek. She glared at me with pure venom in her eyes, while the entire room watched in stunned silence as she screamed at the top of her lungs, "Watch where you're going! Are you blind?" My mother rushed forward immediately to check on the dress without even glancing at me to see if I was injured by the collision or the assault. Snorts. She grabbed my arm roughly to pull me away from her precious favorite daughter and shouted in front of everyone with a voice full of disdain, "Apologize to your sister or get out of here." I looked toward my father for some shred of defense, but he simply walked to the heavy oak front door and held it open with a cold expression. That told me I was no longer welcome. I stepped out into the freezing winter night without saying another word because I knew this was the final crack that would shatter our family forever. But before I tell you how I made them lose everything by the next morning, please subscribe to the channel and hit the like button to support my journey for justice. I gripped the leather steering wheel tightly as my car cut through the blinding snowstorm, burying the winding mountain roads of Park City. The physical sting on my cheek was already fading into a cold and dangerous clarity. The humiliation I felt back at the villa was quickly being replaced by a calculation that was far sharper than any grief I had ever felt before. I navigated the treacherous curves leading toward my penthouse apartment while letting the silence of the car wash away the chaotic noise of the party I had just left behind. Snorts. It was truly ironic how quickly my family had forgotten exactly who saved them from living on the streets 5 years ago when the real estate market crashed and took my father's business down with it. I remembered vividly how Dad had sat at my kitchen table with his head in his hands while begging me to buy the villa so his wealthy friends would never know he was bankrupt. I was the one who quietly purchased the property to keep up appearances for their social circle, while Bianca was busy spending money she did not earn, on vacations she could not afford. I had even foolishly agreed to fund her fashion boutique chain because Mom insisted that Bianca just needed a little help to get started on her own feet. They seemed to believe that my generosity was an infinite resource that they could exploit forever without ever showing a shred of gratitude or basic respect in return. The elevator ride up to my floor felt agonizingly slow because my mind was already racing through the legal clauses I had written years ago for this exact scenario. I entered my dark apartment and did not even bother to turn on the lights as I walked straight to the home office where I kept my most important documents. I pushed aside the large abstract painting hanging on the north wall to reveal the hidden steel safe that contained the only leverage that mattered now. My fingers moved automatically over the keypad to enter the combination that would unlock the reality my family had conveniently chosen to ignore for half a decade. I pulled out the thick leather binder containing the property deed and the business investment contracts that I had not looked at since the day I signed them. I carried the heavy stack of papers to my desk and switched on a single lamp to illuminate the legal text that was about to destroy their comfortable lives. My finger traced the line on the property deed, which clearly stated in bold capital letters that the sole owner of the estate at 4500 Silver Creek Road was me. They were living there under a zero rent lease agreement that gave me the absolute right to terminate their residency if they violated the Code of Conduct clause. I flipped through the pages until I found the business loan agreement for the boutiques that Bianca paraded around town as her own personal success story. Clause 14. B was explicit about the immediate repayment of the entire principal amount plus interest if the beneficiary engaged in conduct detrimental to the investor's dignity or reputation. Tonight, she had not only insulted me, but physically assaulted me in front of 50 witnesses who could testify to her behavior. She had violated every single condition of our agreement in a matter of seconds because her temper was faster than her brain. I did not care that the digital clock on my desk showed it was past midnight when I picked up my phone to dial the number of my lawyer, Mr. Sterling. He answered on the second ring with the professional alertness of a man who was paid to handle high-stakes crisis at any hour of the day. Mr. Sterling, I need to apologize for calling you this late, but we need to execute the asset recovery protocol immediately, I said into the receiver with a voice that was devoid of any daughterly affection. Is this regarding the contingency plan for the Park City estate and the retail businesses? Mr. Sterling asked calmly, as I heard the rustling of papers on his end of the line. Yes, and I want everything done by the book, but with maximum speed because I want them to wake up to a different reality tomorrow morning, I replied while staring at the signature my mother had witnessed on the loan documents. Draft the eviction notice for the villa, giving them 30 days to vacate the premises starting tomorrow. Initiate the immediate recall of all business loans provided to Bianca and freeze the operating accounts for a forensic audit. I can have the papers. Served by a courier at 8 a.m. tomorrow, along with the utility cut-off orders you authorized previously. Mr. Sterling confirmed efficiently, without asking for unnecessary details about the family drama. Do it, I commanded firmly before ending the call and placing the phone face down on the mahogany desk. I turned my chair to look out the floor-to-ceiling windows at the city lights twinkling below, feeling a sense of absolute finality settling in my chest. There would be no more second chances, or financial bailouts for the people who had treated me like an ATM machine for years. The storm outside was raging with increasing intensity, but it was nothing compared to the legal blizzard that was about to hit my family when the sun rose. I closed the leather binder with a heavy thud, signaling the end of my patience and the beginning of their reckoning. The next morning, when the weak winter sunlight had just begun to touch the massive floor-to-ceiling glass windows of the villa, the nightmare I had orchestrated officially began for my sleeping family. The house was usually a sanctuary of automated warmth and technological comfort that shielded them from the harsh Utah climate. But that sense of security was violently ripped away in a single second. Suddenly, the gentle hum of the geothermal underfloor heating system died out completely. The ambient recessed lighting in the hallways flickered into darkness, and the high-speed fiber-optic internet connection that connected them to the outside world was severed at the source. The multi-million-dollar smart home was instantly transformed from a luxurious palace into a freezing cold tomb of silence and isolation as the temperature inside began to plummet rapidly to match the snowy landscape outside. The silence was broken almost immediately by the shrill and demanding voice of my sister echoing from the master suite on the second floor, where she usually spent her mornings scrolling through social media in bed. She stomped onto the landing wrapped in a silk robe, while furiously tapping the screen of her latest model smartphone, which was now useless without the Wi-Fi connection she took for granted. "Mum, why's the Wi-Fi down? I can't post anything." Bianca screamed down the stairs with the petulant tone of a teenager rather than a 34-year-old woman, unaware that her mother was currently frantically pressing buttons on the dead thermostat in the hallway. Susan was too distracted by the rapidly cooling air to answer immediately, so Bianca let out a frustrated huff and switched her phone to the 4G cellular data network to complete the purchase of a designer handbag she had added to her cart the night before to soothe her wounded ego. She pressed the place order button with a smirk of anticipation, expecting the usual dopamine rush of a confirmed purchase, but instead the screen flashed a terrifying crimson notification that froze the blood in her veins. The words "card declined, account frozen," stared back at her with a brutal finality that she had never experienced in her entire life of privileged dependency. She tried again with a different card and then another, but each attempt resulted in the same catastrophic message that signaled her financial lifeline had been completely severed. Down in the living room, my father was aggressively flipping the light switches up and down as if brute force could make the electricity return to the dead circuits. He marched toward his wife with a scowl etched deeply into his aging face, looking for someone to blame.